Hello and welcome to the first Ask the Gaffer of the 2023-2024 season. Let's start with how are you doing this afternoon?
Yeah, great, Luke. Thanks. Just managed to get a few days away with the family last week for half term and back at it straight away. So we'll feel refreshed and revitalised. So in a good place. Thank you, Luke.
It's good to hear. And obviously, I'll start with another congratulations for winning the FA Trophy. An incredible achievement for the whole club.
Yeah, it is, and it is. It's congratulations to everyone, really. I think the players obviously played a huge part in that. The staff deserve the football side of the staff deserve their praise as well for their contribution. But I think everyone around the club has earned some share in that success this season. So yeah, really pleased for everyone at Halifax Town.
So obviously, as you'll have seen, we've had a few questions coming from the fans this afternoon. A few of those have been about Wembley. Firstly, just how proud were you to walk out with the team at Wembley?
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, it's just such a surreal experience, Luke. I mean, it's fantastic on so many levels. I mean, being in the changing rooms at Wembley and, seeing the faces of the players and the staff and people around the club who've worked so hard to get us there this season, and then stepping out onto the hallowed Wembley turf and hearing and seeing the thousands and thousands of fans who made the trip down from Halifax to support the team and be part of the occasion, and just a wonderful, wonderful experience, and just showed what a fantastic football club this is. So it was thrilling on many levels, but it also added that little extra ounce of pressure. Seeing the numbers of people, seeing the excitement amongst the supporters, and it just added that little bit of pressure to spur us on to work that bit harder to get the result, which ultimately was what the day was all about. Nobody wants to come away from Wembley beaten, and that was front of our minds as we stepped out there, and unfortunately we managed to do enough to get the result and make it a really memorable occasion.
Absolutely. I mean, looking back a little bit further to the semi-final against Altrincham, that sort of seemed to be a little bit of a turning point. Of course, unbeaten after that. What sort of changed within the camp to allow us to go on such a strong run of form after that?
Well, I think for me, the run of form started before that. I think we were one defeat in 7, maybe one defeat in 8, running up to the Altrincham game, and that defeat was a 2-0 away defeat at Chesterfield, which, obviously there's no shame in getting beat at Chesterfield when they were on such a push for the top 3. We'd beaten Wealdstone 5-0 in a fantastic performance in that run. So there were lots of positives going into the Altrincham game. Everybody knows we didn't play particularly well in the Altrincham game, but we did enough to get the result and obviously get ourselves over the line with the penalties, and then we backed that up with fantastic performances over the Easter weekend at home to Wrexham and away to York City. So, yeah, for me, the signs were there much earlier than that, and I think it was just so pleasing that we managed to remain so consistent from that Wealdstone game at home, which was such a fantastic performance, right the way through to the end of the season, and just showed that we can really compete at the top end of the division, and we can go on really significant runs with the group of players that we've got. So yeah, it was just a fantastic second half of the season. Once we got the gloomy January and February results out of it, I thought we were a real force.
Looking at the squad now, obviously in the middle of pre-season, lots going on. We've had 3 departures confirmed so far, with Sam Smart, Sam Minihan, and of course Matt Warburton joining Solihull Moors.
Yeah, a great servant for Halifax Town, and will be remembered for a long time. Will Warby, he's a loss, but personal circumstances mean that the move to that area of the country was always a potential. It always had the potential to happen. Obviously, with Smarty and Minnie, they had less opportunities, and never really got going in a Halifax Town shirt. Not for the lack of effort and for the lack of trying, and I'm sure they'll both not be short of offers going forward. But yeah, they're the 3 that we've lost at this stage.
Of course, it was a couple of days ago now we released that sort of retain list. I think 10 players were on it. A pretty healthy start to player retention.
It is, yeah, great foundation. You know, there's a lot of young players on there who are probably slightly ahead of where we expected them to be now because of the number of games they've managed to get under the belt this season. So it's a really exciting and positive group. You look at the run of form that we've ended the season on, and a lot of those players have figured heavily within that run of form. So we certainly start from a healthy base. What we've got to do is add quality to that. We've got to add some more players who will give us longevity from a youthful perspective, and we need some experience in and around it as well. But it's a fantastic base to start from.
Obviously, naturally, I think the fans all wanting to know a little bit more. Obviously, players like Sam Johnson and Jack Senior and a number of others who weren't included on that retain list.
Yeah, Sam Johnson's one of the easier ones. I think it's no secret that Sam's a shaman through and through, and I think, of course, he's out of contract, but we're well on with renewing his deal, and with his desire and his real love of the club, it's not very difficult to come to an agreement with Sam. He wants to play at Halifax Town and continue his long association with the club because it's very close to his heart. So that's a simple one, really. Nothing signed and sealed yet, but I would be confident that we will get there with Sam Johnson. Others slightly more complex, and we've worked extremely hard to get what are fantastic deals put in front of players. You know, certainly in my time at the club, which is now entering its 5th season, we've started to show some real commitment to lads who've served the club well, and we want to do everything we can to retain them. So that's what we're trying to do. We'll be up against some very stiff competition, but if they want to continue their association with Halifax Town, we've put some very good offers on the table to try and persuade them to do that.
And of course, throughout last season, obviously we had a number of youth team players that would often train with the first team. Will any of them getting opportunities across the season?
Yeah, absolutely. Throughout pre-season, there should be some opportunities. The obvious ones are Frankie Sinfield and Ted Lavelle, who were around the FA Trophy squad. They're two fantastic young prospects for us, and we will be discussing how we move forward with them over the next couple of weeks. But we want to continue that association with the academy. Steve Nicol does some fantastic work recruiting and bringing through some really good players, and what we've got to do is be patient with them, give them time, and build an opportunity to develop them further into adult football and first team football. So there too, but I'm hoping there may be one or two others that we can get in and around it over the next few months.
And in terms of obviously the tactical setup, can we expect it to be sort of similar to the 3-4-3 that we used for sort of almost the final third of last season?
Yeah, well, in terms of shape, yes, there'll be similarities. We want to have that flexibility that we have shown at times where we can go between the two shapes, the two preferred shapes. In terms of our play, I think if you'd have asked the fans when we played Woking at home or Aldershot away early part of the season, whether or not we'd be such a solid defensive unit come the end of the season and be earning the title of most clean sheets in the league, joint with Eastleigh, of course, I think they would have laughed at you. But so that side of our game has developed and become really consistent, and we've become very difficult to beat and quite miserly in front of our own goal. But equally so, we want to commit more time and energy to being better on the ball and creating more opportunities, because maybe because of the early stages of the season we committed an awful lot of time to working hard to being difficult to beat, and that means less time committed to our build-up play and our possession in the opposition half. So that's one feature I hope the fans will see us improve this season, what we do when we've got the ball both in our own half and in the opposition half.
Obviously just under a month now until pre-season does start. How is player recruitment going?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's hard work. It's busy at this time of year, and you know, you feel a bit like a double glazing salesman, really. I'm out there selling the club and making sure people understand what they're coming to if they come to Halifax Town, and the fact that there's an awful lot of value in coming and playing your football at Halifax Town. Not all of it's associated to pounds, shillings and pence, but a lot of that value is associated to the experience of playing at the Shea, playing the way we want to play, and playing on a platform that may well help you progress your career in an upward trajectory. So there's an awful lot of talking goes on at the moment, and I get a bit sick of the sound of my own voice, but it is enjoyable in many respects because it helps remind me of what a fantastic football club it is, what we represent and what we really want to aspire to achieve over the next season or two.
What positions would you be sort of looking to strengthen the most at the minute?
Well, we want to strengthen all of them, really. I mean, listen, we've if we're going to play a bit more and look to give a possession-based team, then we've got to look across the board at have we got that technical base to be able to move the ball through the thirds effectively. So that's an aspect of our play we need to focus on with our recruitment. We will look at our left side. Angelo Capello has done a fantastic job at left wing back this season, but also he's a player who plays particularly well when he comes inside and plays in that number 10 role. So we want to see him more in that role going forward. So one of the focuses will be around recruiting a really solid left wing back to come in and compete in that area. And then across all the positions, we want good competition. So we're looking to make sure that happens right across the board.
And when looking at signing a new player, what are the sort of main qualities that you look for in them?
Well, listen, people have heard this in Pete's time at the club when he was managing Halifax Town, and one of the things we always looked for was good characters, and that's something that we need to remain focused on, is making sure these are people who are committed, who want to serve the club, who want to get better and improve, and you know, have that humbleness and humility that's required to be coachable and to want to develop. So that's the key attribute, the character. Then after that, we're looking at technical ability, what they will bring to the team in their position, what their tactical decision making is like is vitally important. And one of the things we want to try and move forward with within the squad is the athletic ability. We've got a lot of good athletes within the team, but we always think we can improve that. So players with the ability to get around the pitch effectively, to eat up the space that playing on the Shea gives you, and to really put pressure on teams from the point of their athleticism. So they're some of the features that we're looking at.
Of course, naturally, I think the fans obviously looking at the loan signings we had at the end of last season, Adam Senior and Max Wright. Is there any possibility of bringing them in permanently?
Yeah, well, the feature of the recruitment last year that was successful was the loan signings, and I think we've got to give credit to Gareth McClelland and also Andy Cooper, my assistant in that department, because they focused very heavily on looking at getting the right people in, not only in terms of character but in terms of the technical and tactical ability. And I think that was something that we did really well last season in terms of bringing in the right people when we needed them. If we can continue that association with all three of those, it'd be fantastic. But certainly, I know that we've had good discussions with Max Wright and his agent, so that's quite well advanced, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to do something with Max. And Adam Senior also is a fantastic young prospect and somebody who would just light up the Shea if we manage to keep hold of him for the next couple of years.
Of course, another player that number of fans have asked about as well is Billy Waters, and the potential to bring him back potentially on loan from Wrexham.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Billy's available at the moment, to be honest with you. I know he was happy at Wrexham for the end of the season. I know he didn't maybe get as much football as he would have liked, but certainly the wider experience that he had there was very positive. But listen, Billy he's had one season as a Halifax Town player, and yet somehow within that season he managed to gain legendary status. So I think he's a fantastic lad and a fantastic footballer. So if there was any chance of bringing him back, we would certainly explore it.
Moving away from recruitment, looking at the friendlies we've confirmed so far, obviously Glossop, North End, Curzon, Ashton and Radcliffe, and I'm sure we'll have a few more others to confirm soon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're trying to get a broad base of friendlies who we could do with. We've got pretty much all of them agreed at this stage, and it gives us that little broad spectrum of types of oppositions. But one of the things that we want to try and improve on this season that we struggled with last season was starting with a real stable squad of players who we know will be fit and ready to start the season when it begins. Last season we were obviously signing late into pre-season because of the high turnover of players, and I think that did impact the start of our season, amongst other things, of course. But that was one of the negatives for the start of the league season. So we want to be in a position whereby once we hit that first game against Glossop North End, we've got a good group of players ready to play together and ready to progress through the variety of challenges that the teams we face will present.
Of course, it's just over a year now since you were unveiled as the manager of the club. Looking back, what is something that you've learned in your first season as a manager?
Wow, how long have you got? It's been a fantastic experience, and I've enjoyed it hugely. Every aspect of it. People have asked along the way, how did you cope when we struggled at the beginning of the season and we couldn't put the ball in the back of the net, and then you've got that spell around January and February that we just couldn't seem to string any results together or even any performances. So it was stressful and it was difficult, but amazing experiences that we've come through, and we've become stronger for as a staff and stronger for as a group of players. And certainly for my own experience as the manager, I've learned an awful lot. And maybe was it naive or maybe slightly arrogant that I didn't realise I had so much to learn, but I have learned an awful lot in this season, and it excites me going into the new season with all those learnings to implement going forward.
Going into that second season, will you be approaching anything differently to that how you did last season?
Yeah, I think there's a wide range of things that will be tweaked. I don't think there's any huge dramatic changes, but listen, we'll look at having a more stable team starting pre-season, so that once we enter that first competitive game at the beginning of August, we've got a group who've played a good number of minutes together, ready to start the season. There are certain things around interactions with the staff that we'll look to do differently and look to do better. I think it's narrow focused some of our objectives. We want to be successful. We want to win every game. We want to get this football club promoted. And as much as it's a wonderful memory and a wonderful experience leading the team out at Wembley, our objective and our real focus is trying to get into League Two, and that's what we aspire to do. There's no shame in saying that. We want to get there. So I think I'm better equipped to try and help us achieve that this season with the learnings that I've taken from last season, and I would I think I can probably speak for Andy Cooper and some of the other staff in maybe saying they're in a better place as well, given the learnings that have gone from some of the adversity that we've faced this season, that we can take forward into next. So there's loads of stuff we'll tweak and we'll develop and we'll try and do better. And but the objective remains the same. We're going to do everything we can to win every game and look to get ourselves into the Football League.
The last one, looking back now, is there any moment from last season that you're sort of particularly proud of? Maybe excluding Wembley, if that's an obvious one.
Yeah, well, it's tough, really. I think there's so many experiences that were so valuable and played such a huge part in the season. I think there was listen, we played Maidenhead at home, and anyone who was there will want to erase that performance and that result from the memory, much as I did at the time. It was possibly the dullest game of football I'd ever witnessed, and certainly not the type of game that you want to come out as being beaten in. And the atmosphere was tough. It was a difficult time, but I think what came out of that was a real togetherness amongst the squad and the staff going into the following game, which was the Wealdstone game at home. So there were a number of times over the course of the season where we had tough moments, and I think pretty much in every instance the reaction was fantastic, and the players and the staff stood up to some really sort of challenging moments incredibly well. But that Wealdstone performance at home, and clearly the result, was probably the most satisfying moment of the season, because we were under quite a lot of pressure to perform after the weak performance that we'd had against Maidenhead. And there were a couple of times. There was York City at home was a fantastic occasion. Obviously beating Wrexham and beating York City over the Easter weekend were both incredible occasions. But I would say the most satisfying was probably us coming out under a great deal of pressure, and such a young group of players dealing with the pressure going into the Wealdstone game so well, and going on to win it 5-0. I think that gives us real hope that we can go on and achieve what we want to achieve, because this group has dealt with pressure situations over and over again, and come out stronger for it. So yeah, it's that one in particular, but there's any number of occasions when they've shown that resilience, which has been really pleasing.
Of course, looking ahead to the new season now, what are your initial expectations for the season?
Oh yeah, well, I've got a few, Luke. I mean, my initial expectation would be that we maintain a fantastic defensive record and defensive performances that we achieved over the last couple of months of the season. We've got to maintain that. That's vital. I expect us to be better in possession in the coming season, because I think although we had some moments, they weren't consistent enough, and they weren't prolonged enough for us to really dominate games with the ball. So I want to see us start to develop that side of our play, and I expect us to be at the right end of the table more consistently. We've shown over the course of this season that we can compete with the teams who were right at the top end of the division. We've beaten some very strong teams, and that should give us hope and give us confidence that we can mount a real push for the top, and that's what I expect us to try and do this season.
Looking at the fixtures, about a month or so until the fixtures will get released. Are there any that you're particularly looking forward to? I know the fans certainly have got their eye on Rochdale.
Yeah, that's a big one for sure. That is, there are some really interesting ones now, aren't there? We've got obviously York City, we've got Rochdale, we've got Oldham on our doorstep, Altrincham aren't a million miles away, Files coming to the division. There's some real good northern fixtures coming to this season. So listen, all of those and more, it'll be great to face up against Chesterfield again, because I think there'll be a good measure of where we're at. It'll be interesting to see how Southend respond after the season they've had. So there's any number of games that I'm really looking forward to this season. But yeah, just like the fans, I think it will be Rochdale home and away that'll maybe be the most interesting going forward.
Looking to the new campaign, have you had any thoughts as to who will be the captain of the side next season, or is that something that will be decided sort of through pre-season?
Yeah, well, it'll just be once we've got the squad established. It's not something we would really establish just yet, but once we know who's re-signing, what new bodies we're bringing in, and we sit down and look at the squad as a whole and then make that decision.
A couple of questions about yourself then. Growing up, were there any sort of players or managers that you sort of really looked up to?
Loads, yeah. I mean, listen, as a player, I absolutely adored Paul Scholes. I thought he was an absolute dream to watch. I thought that his movement, the way he found space and made time on the ball, and obviously his technical ability, just a joy watching him, and then having the pleasure of working with him, albeit briefly, was fantastic. In terms of managers, I mean, it's obvious, isn't it? The obvious ones, Alex Ferguson. I think he's just such an incredible all-round operator. But you look these days and you look at what Pep Guardiola's doing at Man City, and it just seems to be relentless. We've seen Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp be fantastic one season and then pretty awful the next. Whereas with Guardiola, it's just such a high level of consistent performance. You can't help but admire that and look up to it. So, but historically, I think it'd probably have to be Ferguson. Although I do remember as a kid just being sort of mesmerised really by Ron Atkinson's spell in the 80s at Man United. I thought he was such a colourful, flamboyant character. It was always interesting watching him.
What would you say your favourite football game that you've seen as sort of your time as a manager or assistant or a coach even?
The one that really sticks out, and I absolutely loved it because we had absolutely no right to win the game, was the Notts County game at home when we won 3-2 with Warby's 100th minute winner, and we'd had a shambolic sending off, which was never a red card, and at that point we were 2-0 down, 70 minutes down to 10 men, 2-0 down against Notts County. You're never going to come back from that, are you? So to come back and win 3-2, and the atmosphere in the stadium was just electric. It was pretty difficult to beat that. Although having said that, I think if you look at it in simple terms, Wrexham at home this season, we had no right to beat Wrexham. They're the big boys, they're the big spenders, they're all Football League players, and we're little old Halifax, aren't we? You give us a chance against Wrexham this season. And bearing in mind, on the day, we also had Jesse Deborah out, we had Luke Summerfield out injured, to mention just a couple. And then we went and not just beat them, but we deserved to beat them. 3-1 was a perfectly reasonable scoreline. So they're the two that spring to mind most. But yeah, there was a completely different feel about watching and managing the game at Wembley against Gateshead. That is a different experience altogether. So I'd have to put that one up there.
And just a couple of fun ones now to finish off. Who would you say are the best and worst quizzes across the staff and players?
The best by far is Aaron Scholes, the physio. He is phenomenal. I think I'm not sure who in the opposition teams are the best, but there's Warby, Sam Johnson, Luke Summerfield always tend to be in and around teams who do well in the quizzes. But Aaron Scholes, his breadth of useless knowledge is relentless. It is just fantastic, and the speed with which he can recall some answers, he's frightening really. So yeah, Aaron would have to be number one.
If you could choose some new walkout music at the Shea, what would your choice be?
Oh wow, I'd have to have a bit of time to think about that. I think walkout music. So I'd listen. Probably a bit boring, really. I always think Fatboy Slim, Right Here, Right Now, is pretty appropriate kind of walkout music. That type of thing. Although, we could go a bit sort of left field and go with LL Cool J and Mama Said Knock You Out. I think that might be maybe not quite appropriate, really. But there's the Utah Saints song from the 90s. I always think that's quite an upbeat kind of walkout tune, but listen, it probably should be something slightly more appropriate and linked to Halifax Town, which now you've put me on the spot, I can't quite think of off the top of my head. So I'd probably say that Fatboy Slim tune, Right Here, Right Now.
And finally, just to end things off, do you have a message for the fans ahead of the new season?
Yeah, I mean, just keep up the fantastic support. I think we've had some rocky moments across the season, and there have been trials for all of us, players, staff, fans, and we can't forget all of you guys in the media team and other departments in the club who've had a real had some real tough moments, and ultimately we've stuck together and we got there, didn't we? We had a fantastic climax to the season. So let's be optimistic, let's be really positive, and let's go into the season knowing everything that's good about the club and really hopeful that we can achieve something fantastic together.
That's perfect. Thank you for your time, Chris.